doing your installations, you always want to make sure that you install Time Matters last so that it can see which other programs are already installed and install the integration accordingly. In order to change these settings, depending on the version of Windows you're using, you may need to run Time Matters as an administrator in order to get in and change these settings. So keep that in mind. And you may want to also, in security, restrict who has access to these settings. You'll notice there are a couple of new ones down here. Perform a Time Matters save when a file is saved in Excel and in PowerPoint. And under the word processor setup, there's a similar setting for Word, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Some of you may not know that you have the ability, again, under your user settings, to modify not just the main toolbar at the top of your screen, but also the individual list toolbars and form toolbars that show on all of your forms and lists. You can also edit which columns are showing, and you can quickly change the sort of any list just by clicking on the column heading. So to show you some of that, this is the window that you get when you right-click in your main toolbar and choose Customize. The items on the right are already on your toolbar. The ones on the left are the ones that are available. So if you find that you add a lot of new phone call records during the day, you might want to take this Add Phone button and add it to your toolbar, and then you can use the up and down arrows to determine where it will be, which other buttons it will be grouped with. To edit your columns, you can go to the Edit menu and choose Columns, and whichever list you happen to be on, this one is the contact list, you will see which columns are already on the list. You can remove the columns that you don't need to see, and you can add the ones that you do want to see, and the column settings are individual for each quick tab. And of course, any list that you want to put in a different order, you can sort by clicking on the column heading. Sorting on the first name is one of my personal favorites because very often I will meet someone and I know I've added them to my Time Matters database, and 2 weeks later I might remember that the person's name was Sarah, but I can't remember the last name. So if you click on the column heading, you can then search by first name, and you can see here that I have 3 Williams, and maybe this William Albright is the one that I was looking for, and I can find that information very quickly. You can sort by phone number, so area codes are grouped together, zip codes, whatever you want, as long as those columns appear on your list. Just a couple of quick utility types of things, and you'll notice, by the way, that I am a big keyboard person. I go all the way back to DOS, so that really dates me, and so I was using a PC before we even had a mouse. But if you're looking at a list of items that you have searched and selected, you can instantly tag them all by using Control-T, Control-U to untag. You can tag and untag individual records with Shift-T and Shift-U. And then, of course, you can always right-click and say Tag a record and then choose Tag all records if you insist on doing that without letting go of your mouse. But usually I find that the keyboard option is quicker, especially if your hands happen to already be on the keyboard. Another favorite is the Send to Excel tool, which usually is installed on your toolbar unless you have a really old version of Time Matters that you've been upgrading and upgrading, and it dates back to before we had the Send to Excel option. That option might not be there, but now you know how to edit your toolbars and add the Send to Excel tool. So if I did a search and I tagged these 2 records manually and I wanted to have all of the columns that are displayed of these 2 records in Excel, I've tagged them in Time Matters, I would click Send to Excel, and then my spreadsheet would open up with exactly the same information I was looking at in Time Matters. That is a really great platform from which to jump off and do some fancy formatting. You can add titles. You can control the pagination. So there's an awful lot that you can do in Excel with the data that you've brought over from Time Matters. Some of you may not be aware that Time Matters has journal views that allow you to group data based on either what belongs to you, what belongs to a particular matter, and what belongs to a particular contact. All of the journals are in the calendar menu, and you can see, of course, that there are also keyboard shortcuts to open up each one. The personal journal shows you everything that belongs to your staff ID. Here's your staff selector here. This particular one, this I took from the Tutor database in version 12, and this comes set up with this week, next week, this month, next month. But I think you'll find in your live Time Matters database that the only thing you're going to have is today. But if you click on this Options button, you'll be able to set up your own views. We don't have time to go into that in detail because there's a lot that you can do, and you can actually customize the date range and the fields that appear based on which type of record it is. So this is just one example of how you can do it. It can be in 3 columns, 2 columns, or 1 column. And I use my journal probably 15 times a day just to see where I am and how many records I've billed and so forth. The Matter Journal requires you to select a matter up at the top, and then it will show you whatever date range you have set up. Again, it defaults to today, but it will show you all of the different records for that matter. What I really like, too, is it's an easy way to see which contacts are related to that matter. And the Contact Journal is the same as the Matter Journal, except it's flipped around. You see everything to do with the contact and a list of related matters. So these are great ways of synthesizing multiple types of records in one quick view that you can access with a single click. Did you know that Time Matters had its own recycle bin? Just like Windows has a recycle bin for your files, if you accidentally delete a record from Time Matters, or if you delete a record and later on change your mind about it, you can go to the Time Matters recycle bin, which is in the File menu, and you can select records and undelete them. So it looks like this, and this is a fairly new database, so there's not a whole lot in the recycle bin, but you can tag records individually and you can undelete them. You can empty the recycle bin, or you can tag records and actually selectively empty them from the recycle bin. So this is a very useful thing for recovering from mistakes. Try to remember that it's there. If you think that a record that you should be seeing is missing, this is one of the first places you would look. Keyboard shortcuts. You may know that the F2 key is almost always the lookup key. It is similar to clicking on the lookup button, for example, on a contact field where you click to do a lookup from your contact list. If you are entering date and time, there are lots of shortcuts you can do. The letter T in a main date field will always insert today's date, if you didn't know that. Not in a field that has been customized to be a date, but in the main date field, like on an event in the upper left corner. And there is also a help screen. If you go into your Time Matters help, there is a help screen called Hotkeys and Shortcuts, and these are some examples of some of the things that are shown for you on that help screen. My favorites are the ones that you can list that you can open by pressing a single function key. You don't have to hold down Shift or Control or anything like that. But notice that it's easy to open calendar views too. So if there are things that you do a lot but not enough that you want to have the button on your toolbar, you can get to things quickly by using your keyboard shortcuts. And then date and time entry. I think it was Tom Rowe from OTB who taught me this probably a dozen years ago. If you are creating an appointment, say, for 9:30 in the morning, you do not have to type 9:30. You do not have to click the lookup and click on the 9 and click on the 30. You can actually type 9.3 as a kind of shorthand. Then you can tab over into your duration field. And if it's an hour and a half long, you just type 1.5, and you let Time Matters do the math about what the end time is going to be. So by typing 9.3 tab 1.5, you can end up with an appointment that's entered for 9:30 to 11 a.m. And then fill in the rest of your form, and you're ready to go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 keystrokes, and you're done. Record types. I know a lot of firms where they're very strict and they feel like if they put something in their matter list or their case list, it has to be a client matter. That is not true. You can use those for anything that helps you keep your data organized. The examples I've given you here are things like you could put the name of your firm and then some character to separate it, and then staff development, or holiday party if you were getting quotes from different places to hold your party. You could store all of your emails and documents and link them to the holiday party case, and that makes it very easy to find everything later. Same thing, you could have a project for prospective employees and store all your data in there. Anything that you can think of. I have learned so much from my clients' creativity about better ways for me to use Time Matters. So think about it, and you be the creative one and see what else you can make it do for you. Same thing with contacts. They don't have to be people. They don't have to be companies. They can be anything you want. I have a contact record called Thoughts. So if I see a quotation that I like, or just something pops into my head, I'll put it into a note, or if somebody emails me something that I like, I'll save it under Thoughts, and then I know where to go get it. So again, use it well. Did you know that there are additional record types besides the ones that you see all the time? Several versions ago, there were user-defined record types added to Time Matters. These are the main record types up in this top part here. And also, by the way, since we're in program level setup, if I don't want anybody to be using the custom records, I can uncheck that box and the custom records disappear from the whole program. By the same token, I could add another type of record, and I'll call this related parties. I've found this helps people, this helps people when they need a way to connect, put a link between, say, a contact and a matter. If you have somebody like an opposing counsel, an accountant, an expert witness, those people are in your contact list, but they're not going to be uniquely related to one matter. So if you create something like a related parties list, that can provide the link between the contact and the matter and describe how that person is linked to a particular matter. So your classification code list for this would consist of all the different relationships that a person could have to a case. So play around with those and you can have some fun. They can be name lists, they can be date lists. Name lists would behave something like contacts and matters. Date lists would behave more like events and to-dos. Inheritance. I tend to work with my contact or my matter list open all the time, so that if I have to create another record, like a phone call or an event, I can highlight the record that I want to link it to and then use either my keystroke shortcuts or my mouse to add the new record. And when the new record opens up, it already has the contact and the matter filled into the regarding line. So that's a huge time saver. Also, the save command. We're all used to doing save and close because there's that nice button up on the toolbar that says save and close. But if you go to the File menu, there are other things you can do besides just save and close. You can save and make a duplicate of a record. So if you just got a new client and you're adding a number of employees of your client firm, you can add those all at once just by going save and copy. And maybe on each new one, you only need to change the name and the email address or the direct phone line or something like that. And save and new, if people are not from the same firm but you're adding a bunch of contacts, maybe you collected a stack of business cards, you can do save and new on each one and a blank contact record will automatically come up. To quickly search an entire list, if you have, I'm using the contact list here as an example. If you have your field called Search Contacts in the toolbar, you can type whatever you're looking for in there and hit Enter, and it will search all the contact records. If you do not have that on your toolbar and you don't want to add it, you can use Control F as in Frank, which works just about in every Windows program you can think of. It's kind of a universal field for finding something. So Control F will bring up this little window, and you can type in the text that you're searching for, and you can specify if you want to look in a particular field or in all fields. I hope you all know about the global search, which is what I call the electronic part of the conflict check. This checks the entire database to see where whatever text you type in appears in your database in any type of record. You can set it with a date limitation, or you can just leave it the way it comes up and it will search everything. Also, I tell people that conflict check has two components. One is the electronic part and one is the mental part. The part that says to every person in the firm, do you know in your brain of any reason why this person should not become a client or this firm should not become a client? And for that, I don't think I have a slide that shows it, but on every record there is a little box that says Review. If you check off the Review box, it will initiate a record review, and you can specify which people in your firm need to weigh in on that record and comment on whether it's acceptable or not. So that's kind of a little-known feature. Did you know that Time Matters had its own RSS reader? I think this is pretty cool, especially because you read things like, I think recently I saw an article that said that Google was going to discontinue their reader. So any time you subscribe to an RSS feed, and I gave you this example up here in the upper right-hand corner. This one happens to be the one from the NPR website. If you don't have separate reader software that you really, really like, I strongly suggest you try doing it in Time Matters. If you go to the View menu, it's under Newsreader. You can add a new provider over here. This is the one for intellectual property pleadings from FeedBurner. And if you go to the website that you're going to subscribe to and look for the RSS feed, or sometimes you'll just see a little symbol like this. You've all seen it for podcasts and whatnot. You may also see a link that says XML sometimes. And if you click on that, there's usually a URL that you can copy and paste right into here and then give it a name, save it, and you've got it updating as often as the source updates its news, and everything is right here in Time Matters. You can do all your reading for the day without having to ever leave the program. If you're like me, you like to control how you set up your contacts and your matters, and you don't want to have a wizard beating you over the head and telling you which fields you have to fill in first. So if you would like to disable any of your data entry wizards, you can do it under user level settings, which I showed you earlier, or when you go to enter a contact and you say, oh shoot, I forgot that wizard was going to come up. There's a box you can check that says do not use this again. Then you would hit cancel, and you would see, do you want to use this wizard next time, and say no, and that will have the effect of unchecking the box in your user settings. Remember, this only affects your user login because other people may like those wizards. So you can turn those off when they pop up. Okay, so much for our general hints. Now we're moving on to things that you can do with your matter and contact lists and forms. In the matter form, if you look under View, there are some areas that you don't normally see. For example, one is the caption area. So if you open up the caption area on your matter form, there's a place where you can actually type in the case caption, and you can see that it is pretty big. It holds, I forget exactly how much text, but you can put, you know, a sentence or two in there, and that is one more field that you can use in your clipboards and in your merges to pull data out of a matter form and into a document. You can also use the short form, which shrinks this up so that you just see the top part of the form. The large memo would take this bottom area and open that up so that it takes up most of the form. So there's some things that you can do there to make that form more useful. And this one is also displaying the notify area, which is this area right here which says send to. Lexis provides you, by virtue of Time Matters, with a free and one-click lookup to the martindale.com database of attorneys. So I added an attorney here who is a real person, Robin Adams Anderson. So if you were to click on the name of a contact and then go up here and click on the red orb for the Martindale lookup, that brings you to, now there may be more than one person that matches depending on how common the name is, but this particular one only brought up one name. It happens to be somebody in Cary, North Carolina, and it gives you the rating that this person has been given by his or her peers. So that's a pretty cool thing if you want to see find out something about who you're going up against in court or something like that. So it's a great database of attorneys, and you can quickly do a lookup of any attorney who's in your contact list. If you subscribe to the LexisNexis Court Link service, that is another area that you can open up from the View menu on your matter form. So you open up your matter and go up to View and choose Court Link area, and that opens up this area. So you can choose the type of court. you can choose the type of case, and then type in your docket number and click the court link button, and it will take you right to the appropriate area. I think it actually brings you to a login screen for the court link, and you type in your subscription information, and it brings you right there. So a nice integration between Time Matters and Lexis services. A lot of times I have people tell me that they want to do a mail merge, but it's just a quickie thing, and they don't want to have to create a document record. And is there a way to do that? There absolutely is. If you tag one or more contacts, you probably know that anytime you tag a record, that allows you to do something with the process menu. If you look in the process menu, one of the options is merge. So if you click process merge, it will actually give you a list of your merge templates. You can choose one, and of course, if your merge is working, it will open right up in your word processor, all merged with a separate document for each contact. So that's a nice little shortcut. If you have never used formatable clipboards, this is another area that's really powerful, and I would strongly urge you to take a look and have some fun with that. You find them under the File menu if you go to Setup, Templates, and Formatable Clipboard. This is a list of the default clipboards that come with the tutor database, and I think they're also in the main database, even if you haven't created any of your own. If you look at something like the inside address or envelope, this is what the contents of a clipboard look like. Don't let it throw you. It's not that hard to figure out. And this actually reminds me a lot of the old WordPerfect merge language. I think it borrowed a lot from that. But you're going to see things in here that you recognize, like the reference name for a contact. And here's title, main address 1, main address 2, and so forth. And then there's some if-then things in there so that if a field is blank, you don't end up with a blank space in your document. And what this does when you select it is it copies these fields for the selected contacts into the Windows clipboard. So it actually leverages the use of the Windows clipboard so that you can then just take whatever this text, resulting text is, and paste it into a document, an email, whatever you like. In your word processor, you also have the Time Matters Insider. I can't tell you how many times I have seen someone who needs to write a letter to a client or to opposing counsel. And to start off the letter, they go and they search for the last letter they wrote to that person. They pull it up, they delete the body of the letter, change the date, and start typing. That not only is time-consuming, but it also leaves you open to errors. And you could end up sending the wrong letter or saving the letter under the wrong name. So if you use the Insider, you can actually pull in the same address information we just looked at from the clipboard straight into your word processor without even having to open Time Matters. So this is actually the Time Matters toolbar from Word. If you click on Insider, it opens up your contact list and your templates. Click on the template you want, click on the contact you want, and hit Paste, and it will paste the contents of that clipboard, which here is the inside address, right into your letter. Try it. You'll be amazed. If you save document records, I hope that you're using the auto-naming capabilities so that you don't have to laboriously figure out what to call each and every document and make sure that it's in the right path. This is under Program Level Setup, Forms, and then you have to select the form type called Documents. Click on that button, and then in the form that comes up, you have to click the Advanced button. So it's a number of steps to get there. If you didn't know it was there, you might never find it. And this says that the path, the automatically designated path for each document is going to be a folder for the client, a folder for the matter, and then the file name will consist of the classification code of the document record, a space, the document record description, another space, and then the date. And then, of course, the question marks represent the extension for whatever type of file it is. Now, you can always override this by unclicking the box that says Auto Name and put in your own document if you have to. But this is a great way to make sure that your documents are named and stored consistently throughout the firm. If you need to save a report to Adobe, to PDF format, and you don't own a full copy of Adobe, you can still do this from Time Matters. Time Matters has its own driver for creating PDF documents built right into it. So if you created a report and you click the preview button, you're in the report preview. Here's the beginning part of the report. If you go to the save and click on the drop-down arrow, you have several options here. You can save something to PDF and let Time Matters do the heavy lifting. You can send it to Excel. You can save it as a web page and even rich text format. So that's another thing that you might not know was there if somebody didn't point it out to you. Now, there are lots and lots of calendar options because the calendar in Time Matters is very visual, and we all have our own preferences about how we want to see things on the calendar. Time Matters lets you do that. Anything that you change on your calendar is going to be a user-level setting, and it will affect only you. So, for example, the default daily view, when you install Time Matters and open it up and you go to your daily calendar, if you click on daily, you're going to get 1 day on the first tab, 3 days on the second tab, and so forth. So these match up with what's up here. Okay? I don't know about you, but when I open the daily calendar, I kind of like to see what's going to happen tomorrow and maybe the next day. So what I've done here is I changed tab 1 to 3 days, tab 2 to 1 day, so that when my calendar opens, if I click on the daily option in my calendar drop-down on the toolbar, it opens automatically to 3 days. I can still get 1 day over here if I want, and 5, and so forth and so on. But I actually do have my own Time Matters database set up to open automatically to 3 days when I click the daily calendar. And this is under Options, and it's on the General tab of the calendar. If you need to move an event and you're in the daily view, here's another time when it's really great to be able to display 3 days at once. If I wanted to move this signing of irrevocable trust documents scheduled for 4:30, and I'm using this view, I can drag it and drop it where I want it to be. You can see that the mouse pointer changes to my little thing that's going to drag along, and I have an outline that matches the length of the event. And if I let go of the mouse right at this point, the event would be moved to 3 o'clock on the same day. I could also drag it to a different day. In any of the calendar views, especially weekly and monthly, you can use the scroll box to quickly go to a different week or a different month. And if you pay attention, you can actually see where you would end up if you were to let go of your mouse. So here you can see where actually this happens to be displaying the current week. But if you take your scroll box and drag it in either direction, there's a little box that pops up to tell you where you are. So if we were to let go of the mouse now, it would stop on the week that includes May 10th. The date calculator. If I'm creating an event or a to-do, any date-based record, if I click the lookup button to the right of the date field in the upper left corner on an event record, let's say, it brings me to this little calendar where I could very quickly choose the date that I want if I don't want to type in the date. But what if I don't know what date it's going to be? What if I want to do something in 10 business days from now, for example? If I click on this advanced banner right here, it opens up what is called the date calculator. And there's, I could spend 20 minutes just talking about this, but I'm just going to show you quickly. You can either create these templates and name them, or you can do your calculations on the fly. This one happens to be business days, so that means the count weekends is not checked off, count holidays is not checked off, but I'm counting by days. I could also do weeks, months, whatever. And I'm starting from today and counting 10 business days forward, so that tells me that 10 business days from today, or well, from April 15th would be April 29th. And to automatically insert that date into my date field on my event or my to-do, I would just click Use the To Date, and instantly I know I've created a record that is 10 business days from whenever I'm counting from. If you would like to work from the monthly calendar, then you may find that the individual days get really cluttered with activity, and it's hard to read sometimes. But if you click right in one of those boxes for that day of the month, whoops, if you click right in the box, it will open up a little window that displays only the information from that day, and this window is actually resizable. So you can drag the corners and make it whatever size you want so that it displays all the data for that particular day. Printing in Time Matters is always fun. If you go to the Report menu to start your printing activity, then you have to figure out from that point what it is you want to print. Well, do I want to print an event report or do I want to print a calendar report? I'm not sure. Is what I'm looking for, is it a contact report or is it a security report? So I find the best way to go about it is to go to the information that I want printed and find the print icon from that window. So here's my little print icon on my calendar view. And if I click the print icon from any calendar view, it's going to bring me to the calendar reports. And from that point, I can select daily, weekly, monthly. You'll notice in the Tutor database, there are a number of calendar views that have been customized and saved. That is also something you can look at. And by the way, if you've never looked at the Pocket Calendar, it's kind of cool. Maybe not quite as cool now that we're all carrying mobile calendars. But when Time Matters first came out, oh boy, it's close to 20 years now, I think. The Pocket Calendar was a great thing that you could print and fold it in thirds and stick it in your pocket, and you knew exactly where you were supposed to be all day and the phone number of every person you had an appointment with that day. So there's a lot of good stuff here. Again, on your General tab for Calendar View, you can control how your staff appear. Maybe you have a bunch of people in your staff list who've left the firm or who don't have calendars kept in Time Matters. So you can limit this and say you only want selected staff, and this will open up a window that lets you select which staff you want showing in your calendar and which ones you have to choose from. And you can also control the format, whether it's initials first and then the full name, or the full name first and then the initials. This is another feature that I often forget about. Sometimes you want to remember to do something at a particular time. You know, I can't talk to you on the phone right now, but call me back at 2:30. I'll be out of my meeting. So you can go to the View menu of the main menu and choose Alarm Status and create a quick alarm for today at 2:30 to remind you what to do. It will appear in the list of quick alarms, and it will pop up at the designated time. But if you close Time Matters, it goes away. So it's not creating a record that goes on your calendar. It's not cluttering up your event list. It's just a quickie thing to remind you that you wanted to do something today at a particular time. And they are only for today. That brings us to the category of communication, which gets better and better in Time Matters as we go. If your firm is big enough that you use the Time Matters Messenger rather than just talking to each other across the room, then you've probably run into some of the foibles of the Messenger. One that I had with a client just the other day was that they were calling me and telling me that records that were supposed to be displayed in their Messenger were missing, and they didn't understand why their records weren't showing up. It came to find out, now this one is displaying an icon that says show only unread records. But in the case of this person who was calling me, they were looking at only read records. So the new message that had just come in was not showing. So the lesson from this is if you think something should be in your Messenger inbox and you don't see it, check this little drop-down to make sure that it says either read and unread or whichever category you're interested in. A lot of firms use the Messenger for nothing more significant than the pizza's here. Everybody come to the conference room. Or, you know, here's one here. Photocopies are ready. Are you available for lunch? These are great things, and they're good uses of the Messenger because they convey information and then they can be deleted right away. You'll notice there are very few items here, and the Messenger is not designed to be to accumulate a large number of records. However, one of its best uses, and you can see these are all just little pink phone slips, so they're just sending information and nothing more. But this one has an icon that matches the event icon. This one has an icon that matches the phone icon. So basically, if I create a phone record for somebody and I want to make sure that they are aware, maybe they're out of the office and they want to know that this person called and needs them to call back, then I create the phone record. And depending on your settings, you may be able to open up this notify area just by clicking on the notify button. And you can send it to the person who's supposed to get the phone call. It automatically says phone call from, and then it will fill in whatever name you plug in and the in from. And if it's a lookup from your contact list, it'll also pull in the phone number. And then when I save and close my phone call record, this goes to my Messenger inbox, and the right-hand panel, the power view for the for that message has the actual contents of the phone record. So the recipient of this can get all the information that I put into the phone record without having to actually open the phone record. And then once they know about it, they can go ahead and return the call or whatever, and when they're finished with this message, the message can be deleted, but the phone record remains as part of the database. So it's a nice way to convey information, and you can think about it as an envelope that sends a link to the actual phone record. You can also do this with notes and with emails. If somebody sends you an email that you save in Time Matters, you don't have to forward it to 5 other people. You can save it in Time Matters, click notify, and just message a link to that email to the people that need to see it, and you're done. So it keeps your database from being cluttered with multiple copies of the same email. In Windows Explorer, again, this is something that a lot of people are not aware of. This is, in the upper left corner, is the name of a file that is stored in Windows Explorer on an F drive. If you right-click on that file and say send to, which is down here, some of you have probably done this with email. If you say right-click and say send to and say mail recipient, it opens up an Outlook email message with the file already attached. The same type of functionality works with Time Matters. So if I say right-click, send to Time Matters, it will actually open up a Time Matters document profile so that I can fill in the type of document it is, the staff that belongs to, and then finish through and link it to the client and the matter and say, okay, and I'm all done. Okay? And it will pick up, the document record will contain the actual path to where the document is now. It doesn't require me to save it again the way TM Save does. Likewise, if I have a file in Windows Explorer that I know is too old to have been profiled in Time Matters, or I saved it and I forgot to TM Save it at the time, but I want Time Matters to know about it, I can take the icon from that file, and you can resize your Windows Explorer window and your Time Matters window so you can see them both at once on the screen. Drag the icon over to the contact or the matter, it works with either one, until I see this little plus sign appear, and then I know that when I drop the document icon on top of the contact, it's going to open up a document form. And this is the way it looks. It picks up the regarding information from the contact I dropped it on, and it picks up the actual location of the document and its name. So you don't have to TM Save it again. You can just finish filling in the information. And you'll notice auto name is grayed out because the document is already named. In Outlook, you can have Outlook prompt you to send to TM Connect every email that you send to Time Matters. So there is actually under Options, under Tools and Options, and I think it's in even funnier places depending on your version of Outlook. But look for Options. It may also be under Add-in Options. You can check the box that says Prompt to Connect when sending an email, so that every email you send, it will say, do you want to send this to Time Matters? And if you say yes, it'll open that email up in a Time Matters email window, let you fill in the regarding information and save it so that it's now captured as part of your Time Matters database. You can save a web page as a Time Matters record. This is a TM Save button that is actually, this little part here is a toolbar, a Time Matters toolbar in Internet Explorer, and that would actually open up a Time Matters web record that would have this URL copied right into it. And again, you can fill in the regarding information so you can save web pages that are related to your cases. And just a quick look at some things that are new in version 12. I know we're running short on time. I can't possibly go into enough detail, but I would like you to try and take a look at these features once you get version 12 installed. The Time Entry Advisor is a big deal. This is a great tool for making sure that everything that you're doing, whether it's an appointment, a phone call, an email, drafting a document, that it gets captured and billed. The only retraining of yourself that you have to do is you have to make sure that every record you create that's going to be related to your billing, you're going to check off the billable box. And if you take a look, just about I think every record does have a billable box on it. So you just have to train yourself to check that box. And so this is uncharged time. These are things that haven't gone over to billing yet, whether it's Billing Matters, PC Law, or a third-party billing program. This is really useful. Now, there are some things here that don't have a matter reference, so these are presumably not client-related, so I could tag those, and there's a button, I can't see it here, but there's a button at the bottom that says Ignore, and so that would move them over to ignored items. So I would encourage you to play around with the Time Entry Advisor. It's pretty cool, and it's also something that can be added to your toolbar. Microsoft Office has a brand new feature. It works in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, where you can set it up so that if you click the Save icon in Word or Excel or whatever, that it will automatically be interpreted as a TM save. So this would be, if you set this up during installation, this is how the Time Matters toolbar will appear. And a save is automatically equal to a TM save. If you find that annoying, or if you're doing something different one day and you don't want it to TM save, you can click the Disable button and it will be turned off, and then the Save button in Word will work the way it always has. So using the Time Matters toolbar that's in Word, you can switch back and forth from these as much as you want to. But I love the fact that you can make it so that it's much harder to forget to TM save a document. Time Matters for Outlook had a preview edition back at the beginning when version 11 first came out, and it wasn't nearly as functional as this one is. I really like Time Matters for Outlook, and it's especially great for people in your office that you want to be able to store and locate information in Time Matters, even if they're not someone that wants to have Time Matters open all the time. So you can search for a contact and grab that contact's email address right out of Time Matters to create your Outlook email without having to open Time Matters. You can see your Time Matters contacts and matters right from the panel, the Time Matters panel that's on the Outlook screen. And you can also do things like click on an email message in Outlook that's been linked and see the matter information that's in Time Matters. This works especially well if you have a nice wide monitor, because you can see everything of the Outlook panels that you want to see, and then you've got some space over on the right-hand side to put your Outlook panel. But again, it's something that I would encourage you to play with. And finally, the new Outlook integration. Two quick things I'll show you here, and then we're going to be done. One is that you now have a choice when you connect an email to Time Matters of saving it either as an email record or as a document record. Email means that it would be saved just like you've always been doing. And if you choose Connect as a document, it will be saved as an Outlook.msg file. And the last thing is that you can set up rules for how your attachments get saved. Instead of being prompted every single time, which is the way actually this is set, but if you always want to save your attachments as documents, then you can click Save as Related Documents here, Save as Related Documents here, and save that and not have to be bothered with that prompt every single time. So you have a lot more control over how Outlook interacts with Time Matters. And that is everything that I have for you. I hope your eyes are not spinning around in your head. But I hope also that I've encouraged you to jot down a couple of things that you want to go back and spend some time with and make Time Matters more productive for you. So with that, I think that Liz is going to open it up to questions.
Correct. And actually we have...
you can make a note of my contact information.
Yes, that is the thing, because we won't get through all these questions, so definitely write down Karen's information, or it will be in the email that I send you with the webinar information, both PowerPoint and recording. So here's what we have. When you open the recycle bin, are you seeing only what you have deleted or what any user has deleted?
I believe it's any user, as long as security is not blocking you from seeing some of those records.
Okay. Next question. In Date Calculator, ours automatically has the date to next day checked off. How do we get rid of that for all users?
Date to next day?
In the Date Calculator.
Oh, this right here? Just uncheck the box.
Okay.
If you want, you can create a group of settings and give them a name and save them as a template.
Okay.
It would be a timetable like these.
Sorry,
so if you go to the timetable button and say Add, you can set it up however you like.
Okay. And the next question. Our global search conflict check for Smith will bring up hundreds of pages of hits. What would you suggest as the best search procedure to eliminate clutter but reach important conflict data?
That's kind of a two-edged sword. I mean, I use Smith just because I happen to know that it's in the tutorial database, and I use it when I do training because it brings up maybe a dozen records. But in a real database, it is going to bring up a lot. Hopefully, you never have to search for Smith. But it's tricky when you search for multiple words because it may or may not account for the fact that they could be typed differently. You will notice, I'm just going to do this real quick. If you click Advanced, you have some options here about whether you want to do a fuzzy search, which basically allows you to specify how far outside of what you typed do you want it to pick up. So if you're not doing a fuzzy search, you might do okay searching for more than one word, but sometimes you have to experiment a little bit. Next question.
Next question. Regarding archiving, when in the billing frame in a matter, I'm trying to archive old records with the process procedure, but sometimes they do not disappear. Why not? I'm using Time Matters version 11.
Okay, could you read it again, the beginning part?
Sure. Sorry, I'm getting so many that it's difficult to read them. Regarding archiving, when in the billing frame of a matter, I'm trying to archive old records with the process feature, but sometimes they don't disappear. Why not?
They don't disappear from the main list?
That's my assumption.
Okay, because if you go to, here's what I know we can't have a direct back and forth here, but I'm going to guess that this person is asking about if I open up a matter and go to the billing tab and I tag all these and I archive them, why don't they disappear? And my guess for that would be that in the properties, that you have checked off Show Archived Records on the list. So that means that on this tab, you would see these records whether or not they're archived because they're part of the case. And they would stay there until the case itself is archived. And if you uncheck that box, then those archived records should disappear from the tab. Next.
Actually, I'm going to need to wrap it up. We're having some weather-related issues here. So
Oh, no.
yeah, everything's fine, but we're done. And what will happen is I will send out a follow-up email. If you have any additional questions, feel free to ask Karen or send them to me and I will send them on. You will get the recording as well as a copy of the PowerPoint next week. And thank you for attending. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.